Well, good morning, everybody. We are back here at the exploration place, but we're here in the staff hallway today so you can see through Karma's tank into the biome. And we have Sabrina with us again this morning.
How's it going?
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to have you guys online with us. So Sabrina, who are we going to see today? What are we doing?
Today we are going to meet Karma. She is our Panther Chameleon. She's a little bit crabby because it's early in the morning for her. But hopefully she will want to have a snack with us and maybe want to come out and show us how she climbs around. She is super interesting, so we're going to go ahead and try and feed her some of these bugs here.
What are we feeding her today?
We have crickets and a superworm here today, which is the larva stage of a darkling beetle. Oh. These are some of her favorites. She can eat lots of other things, though. She eats black soldier fly larvae. She eats small hissing cockroaches, things like that. So these...
Sounds delicious.
These are some of her favorites, so hopefully she'll want to eat them. Oh. Sometimes if there's more than one type of bug in there, it takes her a while to decide which one she wants. But we can also just let one of the crickets climb up for her.
She was doing a lot of wandering around her tank this weekend. I felt like she was hunting.
Sometimes she just walks around and looks for insects, which is funny because sometimes when you offer her food, she doesn't necessarily take it, even if she's doing that. It may be that it's not the insect she was looking for. She does eat black soldier flies as well, and those are kind of fun because you can let them go in her enclosure and watch her catch them.
That does sound fun, actually. We should probably get some black soldier flies.
Yeah.
How old is she?
Karma is just over she's about a year and a half old now. So she's definitely a mature chameleon. These guys live about 2 to 4 years on average, the females. Let's see if she wants to eat from my hand. Sometimes she wants that instead.
We could just be weirding her out with the
It could
camera
be the camera, plus it's... Normally I feed her a little bit later in the day than this. She's looking at it, but she's not looking exactly interested.
There's something neat about her eyes too, right? They go in different directions.
They do. So chameleons, their eyes function sort of like mini gun turrets, so they're independent and they can move them in all directions, as you can see she's doing right now. So they actually have complete 360 vision, so they can see all the way around their body without even turning their head or moving their body at all, which is very advantageous for them in the wild to be able to spot out predators that might be trying to come after them, as well as prey items like crickets and worms and bugs and flies and things like that. They eat most insects, but she definitely has her favorites, and sometimes she's really picky. You have to switch it up back and forth between different prey items because she'll get bored of one. The best things are definitely the roaches we love to feed her. The Madagascar hissing cockroaches come from her native habitat, so these guys are native to Madagascar. You can find them in eastern and northern Madagascar, as well as some of the surrounding islands they've been introduced to. So those are definitely a top food for her. Do you want some of these? Sometimes she just takes forever. Sometimes I have to come back and try again later. She's just not in the mood to eat. She almost looks like she might be getting ready to shed her skin soon too, so maybe that could be part of it.
That's something people always ask about chameleons, is how do they change colors and when will they change colors?
That's a great question. So we used to think, actually we used to have a bunch of different theories as to why or how they change color. Nowadays we know that they do not change color to blend in, so it's not a camouflage. It's not for camouflage purposes. It is actually more to express their mood. So it's more communicative, and they will change colors to communicate with each other or to try and ward off predators. So they will turn a very bright color if they're ready to fight with one another, or change to a very bright color if they think that a predator might be checking them out and they think that the brighter color might scare them off, which it usually does, depending on what animal it is that is eyeing them up. But mostly it's to communicate with other chameleons. So the color she is now, the females aren't quite as bright, so she'll never be as vibrant as some of those like rainbow chameleons you see. Those are the males that have the very vibrant colors, and part of that is to be able to attract a female as well as to establish dominance over other males. The females are usually more of a drab brown or gray color for the most part. She's this pinky kind of peach color that she is now is sort of a calm, relaxed color. So this is the color she will be normally in the mornings when she's just hanging out. If she's excited about something, she will get green bars on her sides. She's eyeing up that cricket as she can get in.
Maybe you turned one loose in there.
Yeah, I did, and I don't know where it went, but I think she sees it. She's better eyes than I do. What are you doing, Karma? Maybe if I put another one on there, she'll grab it. So yeah, the way that they change color is actually super interesting. Oh, it's getting away on you.
This is how we wind up with crickets all over the building.
I know, I have to find them after.
So she's sort of like a living mood ring.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that they change color is they have, so the pigment that they have in their skin, the color that you can see now, is a superficial layer of skin that has sort of their base pigment, so whatever kind of color. It's usually like a gray or a brownish kind of color. And the other colors that you'll see when they begin to sort of change colors, so she'll get green bars on her sides if she's excited. She'll turn a dark blackish gray color if she is stressed out about something. And the way that that color changes is actually the cells in their second layer of skin, so underneath, the cells have something called guanine, and it's a type of crystal that exists inside the cells. And what she actually does is move those cells back and forth. She'll space them out more or turn them on an angle, and that is actually what reflects the light differently. So that's how they change color. It's not actually that the pigments in their color are changing. It's way down there.
You found her worm for
her? It's actually just a trick of lighting. So they don't technically change color in the sense of like their pigment changes or anything like that. It is just the way that their skin cells are reflecting the light that makes them appear a different color.
That's neat. It's like they realign them somehow.
Yeah, it's really strange. And there were a couple of different theories as to how they changed color before we had more advanced technologies to be able to find out. And we've just more recently kind of figured out more about the puzzle that is the chameleon. They are super interesting animals, though. Their toes are another really interesting thing about them. They have posable digits on their toes, which are sort of look like little salad tongs. On the outside layer of her front foot, she has 2 toes, and on the inside she has 3, but her back toes or her back feet are reversed, so she has 3 toes on the outside and 2 on the inside on the back. And the purpose for that is just to allow her to climb and to be able to maneuver herself easier. You'll also see she's kind of holding herself up with her tail. They do have a prehensile tail, so they can hang from their tail and support their body weight easily, which allows them another advantage point for when they are climbing through the tropical tree canopies where they would be in the wild or in her enclosure here, as we can see. Yeah, so.
Yeah, she's good with that tail. Watching her use it to extend her reach is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's awesome. She'll swing around like a monkey from that, and sometimes the kids will watch her and they just love it. They think it's awesome, and it is super cool. When they are in a resting position, chameleons will curl their tail up, and it just looks like a little swirl ball. And the reason that they do that is just so that it's not vulnerable and hanging down when they are not using it to be able to grip onto something. So if she's resting, you'll see her tail is all curled up in a spiral. And that's fairly classic chameleon pose that you'll see in cartoons and things like that.
Yeah, it's always got that.
It always
looks like a snail.
It's curled
almost,
up, yeah. And that's just to keep it safe while they're not using it.
How do these guys reproduce? Do they lay eggs?
So this species does. Panther chameleons do lay eggs. There are many different species of chameleon that give live birth, similar to the garter snakes or the skink. Those guys can give live birth as well. I've actually seen footage of a couple of different chameleons give birth, and the way they do it is really strange because the ones that give live birth don't even usually descend down to the ground. They just plop their babies out wherever they are, and they kind of fall to the next branches or leaves and make their way up, and they're self-sufficient as well, so they don't stay around the parents. They don't need any kind of care. They just go off and start looking for bugs once they've...
Really?
Yeah. So chameleons are super cool. They're part of the iguana family, so they are in the same family as iguanas and anoles and things like that. But they're definitely a lot different than other lizards. They have a lot of unique features such as the eyes, the color changing ability, their feet, their prehensile tail. All of these things are pretty unique to them. There are some other species that have these features, but very few that would have all of those things in one. And the eyes are unique to a chameleon as well. Also, they do not have any ears, but they can hear. They don't have an eardrum, so they actually have a membrane and another auditory organ within the base of their skull, so they actually sort of listen through that membrane and through their bones as well. And so it doesn't, they don't hear things the way at all that we do. Things don't sound the same to them, but they can hear low frequency noises especially well.
Interesting. So they're actually picking up vibrations to know what the sounds are.
So, I mean, right now she can probably hear that we're talking and she probably recognizes our voices, but it doesn't sound at all the same as it would to us or other mammals.
What's the wobbling that they do? Because they go back and forth and side to
They
side.
do, and she looks kind of funny when she does it. What she's doing is actually replicating the movement of the leaves in the tree canopy where she would live. So most of their camouflage actually comes from their body shape and their movement, more so than their coloration. So often their color will not match their environment, but they use this type of movement and these types of poses to recreate leaves in the forest. So the way that she swayed back and forth like that would help her blend into the leaves up in the tree canopies. And basically I think she's trying not to let the crickets that we've put in here see her so that she will be able to catch them more easily. And they always move super cautiously back and forth like that. And again, that is just to avoid being seen by predators as well as to avoid letting their prey see them, because then they won't be able to catch it. She's fairly agile. She just moves very slow. But she can maneuver around some pretty impressive feats when she's being ambitious enough. And chameleons are not a super long-lived lizard, like I mentioned. She probably live about 2 to 4 years on average. The males live about 5 or 6 of this species. The longest-lived chameleons, I believe, are the Parsons chameleons. They only live about 9 or 10 years at the most. And actually, the shortest living tetrapod in the world is a type of chameleon called the Labord's chameleon, and their entire life cycle is only about 12 months. So they only spend about 4 or 5 months as a chameleon, because most of that is when they are incubating in an egg. So that's fairly impressive too. They're strange and interesting in a lot of ways.
They are. Their hands are weird with their little
They
nails
are.
on them. She grips really well.
Maybe I'll pick her up and I'll try and feed her again after. We'll see. So the thing about chameleons as well is a lot of lizards. I'm just gonna put this down. A lot of lizards are definitely considered considerably more handleable than these guys are. Chameleons, not only do you have to start off when they're really young handling them to make sure that they are able to be handled and comfortable with being handled, but you have to handle them in a very specific way. You have to be very gentle with them. They have very sensitive skin, and they stress very easily. So if you're handling them in a way that they're not used to, that can result in a lot of different issues for them as well. So Karma here, I've been handling her since she was probably the size of her head now. She was quite tiny when we got her, and we started handling her and hand feeding her right away so that she would be used to humans, and she would associate us with good things like food. Sometimes she is not up for being handled, and in that case she will either move away from you. If she's super grumpy, like if she is shedding and you're trying to move her for maintenance or to help get like some skin off her head or anything like that, she gets quite grumpy, and she'll actually puff up this little beard that she's got underneath can puff out, so it almost sticks out the way that the veil on the top of her head does, except even further. And she'll puff that up, and sometimes she'll even turn it a bright orange color, and that usually means that she's grouchy. At that point, if you persisted and continued to try and mess with her or with things in her enclosure, then she might open her mouth at you, and that's a defense posture. So she's saying, "Get out of here before I bite you." She's never tried to bite me, and definitely hasn't bitten me, and wouldn't be able to cause too much harm even if she did. I mean, she does have teeth, but they don't have a super strong bite. But just to be respectful of her, these are body language signs that we would look for. Oh, see, she's got a curl around my finger.
Tail, yeah.
Body signs that you would look for if you were trying to handle her, just to avoid stressing her out.
So talk to us again about why these animals are good as pets or not good as pets.
So generally exotic species are not the best pets, just because they are not like, especially reptiles and amphibians and things like that, are not at all like cats and dogs. So unless you know a lot about their care and a lot about the requirements for their dietary needs, their environmental needs, and things like that, you can often develop problems that you will not even know exist because they don't even have a way of showing it to you. So oftentimes, she's going to test her branch and make sure it's her branch. Oftentimes, lizards, especially things like chameleons, bearded dragons, and things like that you find in the pet trade, they'll develop different types of medical issues long before their caretakers realize that they have, simply because they don't have the same types of expressions that mammals do. So oftentimes, even if there's something off a little bit in their behavior, keepers will not notice or will not know what to look for simply because of the fact that they don't behave the way that mammals do. And that's traditionally what people are used to keeping. So not only is the complication of maintaining a proper environment, proper dietary needs being met, and all of that, you also have to take into consideration that they are not the same as cats and dogs in the sense that they won't act out of the ordinary if something is bothering them in the same way. So you have to know what kinds of signs to look for different things like that. Also, chameleons specifically are generally not a great pet in the sense that they typically don't like being handled, especially the males. Karma's a little different. She definitely is more tractable than most chameleons just because of the fact that we've had her since she was so young, and we would always feed her by hand and approach her very cautiously and use super careful handling methods with her. Most chameleons will grow to be very territorial of their cages. They won't want to come out of them and are also very defensive of themselves, so they typically don't like being picked up or handled or anything like that. When we've gotten lucky with Karma, she's got a really good personality, and I think just the proper handling from a really young age makes a difference, but it's not something I would recommend as a pet to the average person.
So I have some questions for you. They're not showing up on my screen, but John just brought them to me. So Wyatt would like to know if she will she jump, or can she jump?
She cannot jump. Chameleons don't jump. If you look at her legs here, she doesn't really have much muscle mass in her legs. So most of the muscle mass that she does have is meant to promote climbing, hanging, and things like that. And she definitely has a lot of muscle mass in her tail compared to her legs. So chameleons just aren't mechanically equipped to jump, so they don't have the right type of body parts to be able to jump.
Audrey's watching too. Hi, Audrey. And she would like to know how warm it needs to be in her tank. That's
a great question, Audrey. So her basking spot needs to be between about 90 to 100 degrees, roughly. Try to keep it around 95 to 100. The basking spot is the warmest area of the cage, so that's where she'll sit if she needs to warm up. The cool side of her enclosure goes down to about 70 degrees, even maybe 65. So it's important for all reptiles to be able to have a cool part of their enclosure as well as a warm part of their enclosure. Some animals like her need a basking area or a hot spot, which means that there is an area in their enclosure which is very warm, and that's to promote proper digestion and metabolic development. So the growth of their bones and the growth of their skin and being able to eat their food properly, all of that has to do with the temperatures in their enclosure.
There's lots of water droplets too. How come?
There is. So because of the environment where Karma would live is a tropical rainforest, so most chameleons are found in rainforests and humid environments. The Panther Chameleon especially comes from a very humid environment, which means that the air is very wet. So there is not only a lot of droplets on the leaves in her enclosure to mimic the way that it would be in the wild. If she was in the wild, she would drink droplets of water from the leaves, as well as to promote her skin being well hydrated. And her respiratory system needs a lot of humidity to function properly. If they get too dry, they'll develop respiratory issues and skin issues. So it's just because where she is adapted to live in the wild is a very wet, humid environment, so the air is really moist.
So it must be a real balancing act then. That's another reason not to keep them as pets, because you could end up with mold in the cage easy.
It is, for sure. You have to make sure that you give it enough time to dry out, that you don't put it in any materials that will be prone to growing mold right away. For example, certain types of wood, certain types of substrates and things like that will grow mold very easily, so you have to be careful with that, especially with high humidity animals like Karma. Another thing is, aside from all of that, just generally the upkeep of feeding her and of keeping her enclosure within the right environmental specifications that she requires is a lot of work. She's actually probably more work than most of the animals have here. So not only are exotics generally more work than mammals because they can't live within the same parameters as us, but also chameleons are an extremely an extremely complicated animal to care for because they have very specific requirements in their environment.
We're certainly finding that here in the museum while we're closed down during the COVID issues. We're still in here every day because our animals need us. So they're not the kind of pet that you want to just get because you think you can leave it on a shelf either. This is something that requires your attention many times every day.
That's another issue with exotic pets is that dogs and cats and things like that, not only do they make noise, but they can follow you around. You can read their body language a lot easier. And they fit into our lifestyles more. So it's not like a chameleon can just live at room temperature. They need all of this specific care, and they need it round the clock. You can't just spray her and leave her for a couple of days. She needs to be misted every day. She needs to have her fog machine. We have a fog machine hooked up in here. We can turn that on after. So she needs all of these specific things, her lights turned on and off at specific times, to be able to grow and to develop and to survive. So they're not the type of animal that you can get and then say go traveling on vacation, because even if you have a friend who comes to feed your dogs and cats or water your plants, these guys are more complicated than most animals, so it would be difficult to be able to accommodate them for any amount of time while you were leaving.
Well, this has been great, Sabrina. We really appreciate the fact that you know so much and you're willing to share it with everyone. I feel like perhaps she's done with us for the day and would rather us close her tank up and let her eat in
she'd have a
peace.
snack, but she's probably going to want me to come back at a later time.
Yeah, she's paying attention. You can see her
She's looking
body
like
posture.
she might be hungry, but I think it's just a bit early. She usually eats around somewhere between 11 and 1, but oftentimes I'll have to come back and check with her because, again, she's a bit of a diva and she wants things done on her watch, not on ours. So, see, she's puffing up a little bit. She might be telling me to get this dish out of here.
Yeah, I think she's had enough.
She's giving me a side eye there.
So with that, I think we will let Karma go back to what she's doing for the day. Thank you again. Oh, I see I have one more question here. A couple of them, actually. So here we go. Megan would like to know, what kind of Panther Chameleon is she?
So she's probably from the Nosy Bay area, judging by her size, but because she was imported through the pet trade and not through a private breeder, it's hard to say exactly which group of Panther Chameleon she would belong to.
And Frederick is watching with Dawn and would like to know, how and when do they change color, and does Karma change color often? I know you talked a bit about it before.
Yeah. So Karma, oh look, she's cleaning her eyes. Sometimes you'll see their eyes bulge out like that or squint up, and that is just a membrane that sweeps the inside of their eyes. So she's cleaning her eye, don't worry about that. So they change color by shifting the cells underneath their first layer of skin. So they have two layers of skin, and the first is sort of a little more transparent. Underneath, they move the cells in their skin around, so it changes the way that the light bounces off of it, and that's how she changes color. And she does that to communicate her mood. So she can't talk. Instead, she changes color to tell us if she's happy or sad. Right now, she's still a very calm color, this orange kind of pinkish color. She's nice and relaxed, even though she's giving us a bit of a beard, kind of telling us to back up. But when she is upset or stressed out about something or angry about something, she'll often turn a very dark black color. And she'll also get some green bars on her sides when she's excited. So she can change back and forth like that. Oh, she's cleaning her eye again.
And we've got a greeting here from Devereaux and Finnegan, too. They say hi, and they're missing the animals and playing in the play space.
Oh, hey guys, we miss you.
We really do miss everybody, and we can't wait to be able to reopen again. But for now, we all have to keep doing our part, and we're all staying home and staying safe, and that's going to keep all of us healthy, including our critters here.
Definitely.
So take care, everyone, and we will be back on the Hell Yeah PG page again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and we'll see what Sabrina's got to teach us then. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.